I have been on a massive binge of Disney animated movies as of late, and I have been really enjoying getting to relive some of the classics that defined my formative years. But as the true film nerd that I am, all this movie watching made me realize that I never formally ranked my favorite animated Disney movies. And as someone who not only loves movies, but also loves ranking things and just organizing things in general, shout out to my OCD, I decided to sit down and deliberate on what my top 5 would actually be. And just as a disclaimer, I will not be including Pixar, even though Disney does technically own that studio, and this is not a list of what I think are objectively the best movies, merely my personal favorites. I was born in the 1990s, so you're gonna see a bit of a bias towards movies that came out in the 90s and early 2000s. That's just the way it is. So without further ado, my 5th favorite Disney animated film of all time is Dinosaur. And listen, I know what you're thinking, this is not a popular choice, and there's probably at least 20 movies that could have had this spot that are objectively better movies. But ask yourself this, how many of those 20 or so movies that came to mind have dinosaurs in them? Exactly. This movie will always have a special place in my heart because dinosaurs were my true first obsession, and Aladar was in fact my first ever Halloween costume. In fact, I still have that onesie in my closet somewhere, because one day my son or daughter will also be wearing it. Going trick-or-treating as Aladar will be a rite of passage in my household. But all jokes to the side, I also think this movie just gets heavily slept on. You have a great story about caring for others and what it means to truly be a great leader. You have incredible villains in the Carnotaurs. I mean, these two literally just aura farm every second they're on screen. And you also have perhaps the most intense scene in any animated Disney movie. When I was a kid first watching it, that meteor shower scene was so intense and fear-inducing. At the end of the day, I think the animation holds up better than most would claim. It has a special place in my heart, I'm still low-key obsessed with dinosaurs, and the runtime is very short, which increases rewatchability. Dinosaur is just a great film, and I will not apologize for having it in my top 5, goddammit. Coming in at 4th place on my list is a movie that will likely get me fewer raised eyebrows. We have Mulan. And as a kid, I was also really obsessed with martial arts and ancient warrior cultures. Samurai, Spartans, ninjas, Shaolin monks, essentially any warrior that was featured on the TV show Deadliest Warrior. So Mulan was always a huge hit with me. But as an adult, I've grown to appreciate it even more on a thematic level. I think there's a good argument that this film might be the best deconstruction of toxic masculinity and the patriarchy that we've ever seen through media. In portraying Mulan's story of how she became a great warrior and hero, the movie really powerfully brings to light some societal issues, such as the inferior treatment of women, and a woman's worth being defined by their beauty, etiquette, and marital status. But even outside of tackling stereotypical and harmful gender norms, I also love the emphasis on the fact that sometimes brute force is not the answer, even for a warrior. We get to see Mulan use clever tactics and deception in order to accomplish many tasks that simple brute force could not have tackled. Listen, I'm always a sucker for a good story, but mix that with a powerful and important message, and now you're cooking with gas. I do think Mulan is easily a top 5 Disney script of all time. Getting the bronze medal of my list, we have yet another classic from my childhood. Who would have guessed? We have Hercules. And in my humble opinion, Meg is the best non-princess Disney princess of all time. Like the other Disney princesses are very lucky that Meg doesn't technically hold that title because she would be in the top spot if she did. But in general, Hercules has all of the things you look for in a great animated Disney movie. The songs are awesome, honestly some of my favorite Disney music of all time. And the coming-of-age story of Hercules is great. He's this brute who has all this strength but absolutely no finesse. so Phil teaches him the ropes of how to actually be a hero. But even after he's mastered that, we still see that he has absolutely no finesse when it comes to the ladies. My girl Meg manipulates him pretty easily, and he sort of goes through a similar arc emotionally as he did physically, which in my opinion is quite clever and makes him all the more endearing. I was also pretty big into Greek mythology when I was a kid, so getting all of the Greek gods and some of that mythos only added to my enjoyment of Hercules. An iconic coming-of-age story, iconic villain, iconic mentor figure, and iconic love interest is certainly a formula for success. For me, this is easily Mount Rushmore of Disney animation. Receiving the silver medal of my list, my second favorite animated Disney film of all time is The Lion King. Now, I've talked about The Lion King in quite a few other videos at this point, but for pretty good reason. We get arguably the most iconic Disney soundtrack of all time, shout out to Elton John, and that big moment of Mufasa's death left me scarred as a child. It is, in my opinion, the most iconic moment in all of Disney animation, and I was ready to shoot the fade with that little orange fool afterwards. Long live the king. And while watching this iconic movie, you also just get such a rich and in-depth character arc to grasp onto. Seeing Simba watch his father die, think it's his fault, and struggle to push all of his feelings of failure and sadness to the side is just absolutely tragic. But that only makes it all the more triumphant when he overcomes it all and takes his rightful place as the king of Pride Rock. You get an all-time soundtrack, an all-time villain, an all-time father figure, and an all-time lead protagonist. If you don't think The Lion King is a classic, you are certifiably insane, my friend. Now we've made it to the moment you've all been waiting for. My definitive favorite animated Disney movie of all time. And it's probably not what you're expecting. Ladies and gentlemen, my number one spot goes to Atlantis. Listen, I know, it's an unconventional pick, and you can tell me that I have late 90s and early 2000s nostalgia bias. That is fine, I absolutely do. But here's the thing with Atlantis. It is essentially an Indiana Jones film, but with a more relatable lead protagonist. Because I am in fact a nerd and do not look like Harrison Ford. A well-made adventure film is really hard to beat, and the idea of searching for a lost civilization was always really fascinating to me. Add on to this Milo and Kita's awesome dynamic with each other, and Rourke, who is the most underrated Disney villain of all time, and you have yourself a certified banger. What really put this movie over the top for me upon my most recent watch was just how ahead of its time Rourke was. I mean, the critique of capitalism and corporate greed that the character of Rourke serves to show is the type of rich thematic drama we got in Raiders of the Lost Ark. In a lot of ways, Rourke and Milo do have a similar dynamic as Indy and Belloc. In fact, Disney as a studio and company should have learned from Rourke. The fact that they have followed in Rourke's footsteps and succumbed to capitalistic greed in a lot of ways makes Atlantis a prophetic story. And in my humble opinion, I don't think Disney has ever or will ever make another film as good as Atlantis. Well, if you made it this far, what do you think of my personal top 5? I'd also love to hear what your top 5 is in the comments. I can't stress this enough, my list is just my list and is by no means an objective top 5. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more Screen Stories content. Thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.